I was like, it was like a minute before we jump on and introduce and talk and stuff. Got better to it today.
Yeah, I had a 10:30. They left. Left a little bit earlier. I thought y'all would cross. I told them, said there's a young lady that comes in. She's with the Augusta Black Chamber. So I said, don't sweat it. But they left a few moments before you arrived.
Mhm. Yeah, I got. I literally left the office, had keys, with no keys in my hand, walked all the way to my car, which is like, how am I gonna get there without keys?
Yeah, trust
I
me.
had to walk in, back in.
I've had those moments. I have those moments. Trust me. So you are not alone.
Great Tuesday. Okay, we have a couple of viewers.
Mhm.
Hi everyone, my name is Shagrayla Hammond, and I am the VP member at large for the Greater Augusta Black Chamber. And as everyone knows, it is Women's History Month. Yesterday was International Women's Day, and we are still celebrating. And we will be doing events all month. So today we will be honoring a woman of our past, Miss Lucy C. Laney. And next to me, I'll let him introduce himself before we get going.
Oh, well, listen, I guess the first thing, first thing I would like to do is thank the Black Chamber of Commerce for giving me an opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Corey Rogers. I am the historian at the Laney Museum. I've worked here since August of 2004. My primary job is to do a lot of the research that we conduct here at the museum, do many of the tours, do about 90% of the tours here, to train other tour guides to come through and do help me, assist me in doing tours. But our primary focus, and one of the reasons why you invited me out today, is to talk about some of the movers and shakers, some of the visionary leaders of the Augusta community, in particular Lucy Craft Laney. And so thank you once again for having me out. And I hope that your audience can take away something important about Miss Laney they didn't already know.
I hope so too, and thank you so much, for doing this and letting us do this. So we can dive right on in. This will be quick. So can you give a brief history about Miss Laney and maybe some facts that people did not know?
Sure thing. Well, one of the popular misconceptions about Miss Laney's narrative is that she was born here in Augusta. In fact, she was born in Macon, Georgia, in 1854. After the Civil War ended and after the passage of the 13th Amendment, and you have all these new schools being created throughout the country for African Americans, Miss Laney enrolled at what was then known as Atlanta University, what is today known as Clark Atlanta University. She graduated from there in 1873 in the very first graduating class of what they call the normal school or the teaching college of Atlanta University. While she was at Atlanta University, one person in particular that I thought was very interesting that she met was a Henry O. Flipper. Flipper was born enslaved in Thomasville, Georgia, and would become the first African American to graduate from West Point. And so Miss Laney certainly had her fair share of encounters with other people that would prove to be extraordinary in their own fields of endeavor. Miss Laney traveled around the state as a certified educator. She taught in Milledgeville, Macon, Savannah, and then finally came to Augusta, set down roots here in Augusta, and by the 1880s had established a school for young ladies. Eventually, some of the young boys in the community also wanted to be educated by Miss Laney, so they also began attending the school. And by 1886, after traveling to Minnesota to meet with the Presbyterian Church, at that meeting, she also met Miss Francine Haynes. Miss Haynes, a northern white philanthropist, also Presbyterian, gave Miss Laney $10,000, believed in her vision for education in Augusta. And through that $10,000 seed money, Miss Laney created a school, purchased the land, what was eventually on what would eventually become her school on the corner of 12th. I'm so sorry, on the corner of Gwinnett, Phillip Street. And that school was named in honor of Miss Haynes. She called it the Haynes Normal and Industrial Institute. It was a private boarding school. Students came from all over the country to go to school here in Augusta to be tutored, to be trained by the great Lucy Laney. By the early 20th century, she had a national reputation. So much so that the great Mary McLeod Bethune actually came to Augusta and trained under Miss Laney. And so Miss Laney's vision for creating a private boarding school, a nursing school called the Lamar School of Nursing, one of the first primary schools in Augusta for African Americans, quite an extraordinary legacy. Last thing I'll quickly mention during this first portion of the interview is that Miss Laney is often synonymous with education. That's the one thing that people often connect her to.
Right.
But in fact, Miss Laney was also very well known in the area of civil rights. And so 104 years ago, in the house that is today the Laney House or the Laney Museum or the Delta House, Miss Laney and 30 others welcomed James Weldon Johnson to the home to start the Augusta NAACP. So you can see where she had one foot in the social action world and one foot in the education world.
That is awesome. And, you know, you mentioned that Miss Laney moved around. You know, you mentioned other cities, and I'm so happy that she chose Augusta to plant her roots here.
I agree.
Because she could have went anywhere else.
That's true.
But she
That's
chose
true.
Augusta, and we, you know, now have this legacy that we are a part of, and that we are able to join in on.
Mhm.
So, like you just mentioned, Miss Laney was not only an educator, you know, she also had a part into all the starting the NAACP and civil rights. So my question is, how is it that Miss Laney can inspire the women of today?
Mhm. Well, I think that the part of her story that I took away that is still applicable to today's society is oftentimes a lot of young girls and a lot of young women are often told they can't do something, and they're often discouraged to do what it is they want to do. And I think if you were to look at Miss Laney's story and apply it, um, Miss Laney would say, don't let anyone deter you from your dream and your goal. Sometimes it may take you saving your money to make it happen. Sometimes it may take a couple of doors being closed, but keep opening those doors. Miss Laney would tell young people today to stay with it, to be strong, to be resolute, to be focused. And I think that the one core value that Miss Laney always had that young people definitely have to understand today, especially young girls, is just you know, have education as that cornerstone for your life going forward. Miss Laney believed that through education, it would unlock doors that were previously locked to young African Americans. I think that you just can't go wrong with having a quality education. But even beyond just education, let's just say college is not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say post-secondary education is not for you. I think Ms. Laney would also say, if you have a vision, no matter how old you are, or no matter what level of education, if you have a vision, write it down, focus on that vision, and don't let anyone ever tell you you can't achieve it, whether it be a family member, whether it be someone in the community, whether it be our society. If they tell you you can't do it, then you try twice as hard to do whatever it is you want to do. And so I think Miss Laney's voice can still be heard in 2021 through the notion of staying focused, stay resolute, and be focused on your vision. And if you do that, then 9 times out of 10, it's going to come to fruition.
Awesome, that's awesome. And you literally touched on something because, like you said, she was an educator. So I was literally going to tie in what about those women who don't, you know, want to go to college
Yeah,
or who want to get a trade or who want to start a business? What is something they can take away? So I'm happy that you
yeah.
touched on that because that is important.
I think it's very important that we don't have a one box fits all within the African American community. As I look back and look at some of the success that our forefathers and mothers had, it wasn't always about going to college. You had very successful carpenters, you had very successful bricklayers, you had very successful painters, you had very successful entertainers. Your vision and your goal is yours and yours alone. And so a 4-year liberal arts education is for some, but not for all.
Mhm.
And so when you figure out what it is you want to do, go for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, um, how is Black women's history important to the Augusta River region?
I think it's extremely important because for so many decades, if not centuries, the accomplishments of African American women have gone untold in this area. And so the Lucy Craft Laney Museum of Black History, we've made it our job to focus a lot of our energy on the exploits of many of these extraordinary women. Women like Amanda America Dixon Toomer, who through her inheritance was one of the wealthiest African Americans in the United States. Women like Justine Washington, who's a preeminent educator and um, public servant for many, many years. If you ever get a chance, if your audience ever gets a chance to visit Augusta University, Somerville campus, Washington Hall is named in honor of she and her husband, Dr. Ike Washington and Dr. Justine Washington, the only building name for an African American on the entire campus. And so those are two examples of some of the extraordinary women that we feature in our Augusta Women of Excellence exhibit. But I want your audience to also do their due diligence, to do their research, to go out and find those unsung heroes in the community. It's one thing for us to focus on the same people over and over again. But when we do that, we do a disservice to the extraordinary women who maybe no one's talked about in decades, but their achievements are worth mentioning.
Absolutely. And even along with that, with the exhibit that you just mentioned, are like how we're honoring, women of our past, women of our present, and the women of our future. Are you guys doing the exact thing? Are you honoring, of course, I mean, the History Museum, so you're honoring the women of the past. So are you honoring the present? And are you, giving a chance for the women who are currently making history and for those who are going to make history to have, I guess, a space or a platform or those different things?
Sure, we have about 3 or 4 generations represented in the exhibit, and I'll tell you something fun that we did. We've done it twice now, but the last time we did it, we focused exclusively on the women of the area, and that is, we started this panel discussion about 7, 8 months ago. We had the second of the 2 panel discussions on what we call the HBCU experience. Dee Griffin from Channel 6 has been the moderator for both of them. She's a Fisk University graduate. The last time we did it about 2 weeks ago, it was an all-female HBCU panel, and it ranged for almost 3 generations. So Tremaine Ivy, one of my students from Payne College, was on the panel discussion. But we also had some 1950 and 60 graduates on there as well. And in my way, that's my ability to say thank you to these extraordinary women. 3, 4 generations. We often also have to remember one thing, and that is history is something in the here and now. History is a living, breathing entity that's always being made, always changing, always present. And so we once again do a disservice if we just honor someone who lived 100 years ago, but we're not honoring those history makers right now. And so that's what we want to continue to do, is to honor everyone and to continue to encourage young girls and young women to achieve, because one of these days I'm going to be giving a tour here at the Laney Museum and I'm going to be honoring you.
Awesome, awesome. So if you could tell us a little bit more about the museum. I know you mentioned a few other names in here, as you like briefly talked about it. But outside of Miss Laney, what other women are being honored here in the exhibit? And then also, how can people come to the exhibit and check this out?
So I'll sort of answer, this is a two-part question, but I'll kind of answer it all in one. So June of this year will be the 30th anniversary of the opening of the Laney Museum. We opened in June of '91. And one of the persons that we're featuring in the current exhibit that we will also feature as we get closer to the 30th anniversary was the former executive director of the Laney Museum for almost 26 years. Now notice, we've only been open for 30 years. She was the executive director for 26 of those 30 years.
Wow.
So her name is Christine Miller Betts. She just recently retired last year from the Laney Museum as director. And she is one of those extraordinary women. And the thing is that the museum was not her first go around. This is sort of a second act for her. She's a nurse, registered nurse by trade, spent much of her career in Germany during the Cold War, worked at Fort Gordon, but then as a member of Delta Sigma Theta, she and several of the other visionary women of this great organization, great sorority, helped to bring the museum to life. And so through her hard work and through Ms. Betts' dedication, we've been able to not just survive, but thrive as the largest African American museum in the river region. That being said, for those members of your audience who would like to come out and see more of this exhibit and the museum, we are currently open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We do 10:30 tours, 2:30 tours with a maximum of 4 people per tour. And that's so we could adhere to the CDC guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
$5 for seniors and military, $7 for adults, and $3 for children under 17. If there are special groups, group of 10 to 15, and you want to maybe do a socially distanced walking tour of the neighborhood, you can give us a call, 706-724-3576, and I'll set that up for you. But thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you at the Laney Museum.
Awesome, awesome. So before we go, is there any other fun facts you want to give us about Miss Laney? Or any like fun details about any other women who are honored here?
Yeah, I have one thing that I'll just sort of end on, and it sort of connects back to the NBA All-Star game this past weekend. I saw a jacket that Chris Paul had on with all of the HBCUs, and I think that there was Zion Williamson had a Livingston College sweatshirt on, and I think many of the I think Team LeBron and Team Kevin Durant, I think the money that they won went to many of the HBCUs, if I'm not mistaken.
Awesome.
So to kind of tie that back into Miss Laney, and I mentioned earlier at the onset of the interview that Miss Laney graduated in the very first graduating class of the normal school of Atlanta University. Mm-hmm. So that automatically connects her to an HBCU. Yep. However, Miss Laney received 5 honorary degrees from 4 historical Black colleges during her lifetime. So Lincoln University, outside of Philadelphia, Howard University honored her with 2 honorary degrees. You have Atlanta University, and then finally, because I saved the best for last, you have my alma mater, South Carolina State University, home of the Bulldogs. We're 125 years old this year, founded in 1896 as a land-grant institution. We also honored Miss Laney with an honorary degree during her time. So Miss Laney has all of these fascinating connections to HBCUs, and many of her students ended up going to historically Black colleges.
Yeah, you also mentioned Bethune.
Mary McLeod Bethune, yes. Exactly. So of course everyone knows Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida, but Mary McLeod Bethune worked under Miss Laney here in Augusta because of that Presbyterian connection.
That is awesome. That is super, super cool. I love learning facts like that. And of course, I'm an HBCU grad, so I love supporting HBCUs.
Nice. Where'd you go?
I went to Payne and then Fayetteville State University.
Awesome.
So, yeah, so love supporting, love hearing the stories. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for our history lesson and for helping us honor the women of our podcast today. Miss Laney and the other amazing women mentioned here in the Augusta River region. I'm Shagrayla, the VP member at large. I hope you guys go to my GABC on Instagram and Facebook and look up the events that we have coming up because we have some fun events coming up for you guys for the rest of the month. And I hope you guys have a happy Tuesday.
Take care, guys.
See you guys later.